2024 coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little black subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that black subscribe button. Really does help our audience grow, really does help our channel grow, really does help and mean more than you could possibly know. So go ahead, hit that little black subscribe button. Also, thank you to our presenting sponsor, Betfred Sportsbook and the Betfred Sportsbook app. Bet 50 on any game, get $250 in free bets. Thank you again to Betfred. Thank you again to you. Now, here's the video that you came here for. And I want to do what I do every year the day after the NBA draft. 2023 version is in the books. We know where Scoot Henderson is going. Victor Wembanyama was obvious from the beginning. Brandon Miller, Jordan Hawkins, Cason Wallace, Anthony Black, Nick Smith, whoever. But what I always do the day after the 2023 or the day after the draft, in this case, the 2023 edition, it's always fun to look ahead to next year and give you the names that you need to know for the next year's draft. And that's exactly what we're going to do today as I go ahead and give you the names you need to know again for the 2024 NBA draft. Couple notes before we get started. One, this is not a mock draft, mainly because we don't know what order what teams are going to be drafting where. And two, oh, by the way, because we don't even know who's going to be in the draft at this time next year, a lot of stuff changes over the course of the year. The other thing I would say, you talk to most NBA draft prognosticators, they will tell you that for years now, people have said that the 2024 class is deemed to be one of the weaker ones in recent memory. There is no Victor Wembanyama. There's not even like a Chet Holmgren or Apollo Banchero that were clear-cut top 1, top 2, top 3 picks coming into this year. I think there's probably 7, 8, 9 guys that all believe they could go the top 2 or 3. So this is going to be wide open. But what I would also say is that every single year I'm told that, oh, that draft doesn't look too good, or that draft is this, or that draft is that, and stuff changes. This draft was supposed to be only about Victor Wembanyama and Scoot Henderson, and then there was a big gap. Well, what ended up happening? Brandon Miller emerged over the course of the year. Other guys emerged as well. And we ended up getting a really fun draft on Thursday night. And I bring it up because I'm here to tell you, somebody's going to emerge between now and June of 2024 and make this draft very compelling next year. So with that said, a lot of stuff going on, but let's get right to this 2024 NBA draft and the names you need to know for next year. Let's start with a guy. If you listen to the Aaron Torres Pod or the Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel, a guy that I have talked about a lot over the last month or so, maybe 6 weeks, Ron Holland, forward originally from the city of Dallas, or the Dallas area, really. Why I bring it up, if you followed this show, was committed to Texas, asked out of his letter of intent in late April. It looked like, for all intents and purposes, he was going to Arkansas, and then at the last minute pulls the old switcheroo, ends up going to G League Ignite. Now, listen, everybody's got to do what's best. I wish we had seen him in college, but I think he's going to thrive with Ignite next year, and I think being able to solely focus on basketball for an elite prospect isn't necessarily a bad thing. But in terms of what you're going to get from him, since many of you probably will not watch him between now and next year's draft, about 6'7", 6'8" forward, it can really do it all. A guy that, one, loves to compete on both ends of the floor, offense and defense. You don't always get that at 17, 18 years old. But really at 6'8", can do just about anything. Can grab a rebound, rip and go. Can beat you off the dribble, attack and finish. Can hit threes if you leave him alone. Has that little 15-foot step. He really is just a really complete, really fun, really awesome player to follow. And he's a guy that I think has gotten better and better throughout his high school career. Ron Holland, the first name that you need to know for the 2024 NBA draft. Let's keep it going with another guy actually from G League Ignite, Matas Buzelis, who's kind of an interesting story. He actually committed to Ignite before his senior year of high school. So there was no real recruitment of him, and really just kind of a guy that he's been there. He's really good. It's just he hasn't gotten as much buzz because he decided not to go the college route and didn't even really go through the recruiting process. Another guy's a wing player, about 6'8", 6'9". I believe his parents are from overseas, but he grew up in the United States. Just a really talented wing player. Aggressive, attacks, great three-point shooter, a little bit more of a playmaker, I think, than Ron Holland. A little bit of a different player at 6'8", but a really talented player. And I'll say this, again, I know most people don't watch G League Ignite, But I'm excited to follow Ignite, not just for Ron Holland, but to see how Matas Buzelis develops as well. Let's go to some of the college players. And let's go to the University of Kentucky, where if you've listened to this show over the last couple of weeks, you know, I believe there are 3 future lottery picks on this Kentucky roster. First name, guy that I love watching, Justin Edwards, 6'7" wing, lefty, and another guy like Ron Holland that really does it on both ends of the court. Again, a lot of guys like to tell you how much they love playing defense. Justin Edwards is a dude that gets after it on both ends of the court. Lefty, a guy that can attack the rim, a guy that can finish, a guy that can hit threes. He's just one of those dudes, man. Two-way player. We live in this world of 3-and-D. He is that guy. Cannot wait to see him at Kentucky. And as good as some of the other guys are, I think he's going to be that guy along with DJ Wagner, who we'll get to in a minute, that I think have to be those alpha dogs. And I'll say this too, by the way. This is why I've always been a little bit higher on Kentucky than most, is because, yes, I've been critical of the portal stuff and all that. They have 3 probable lottery picks in that starting lineup. I think they have a chance to be really good. Justin Edwards is the first name you need to know. Another name we've talked about quite a bit here over the last couple weeks. That's Aaron Bradshaw, 7'1" forward. He doesn't want to be called a center, but he basically is a center. And obviously, a lot is going to change with him between now and the 2023 NBA draft because of his current injury situation. As I record here in late June, he just underwent surgery for a foot issue suffered at the McDonald's All-American game. And we don't really know the timetable. He said it's like a 4 to 6 week injury. It seems as though it's probably going to be a little bit closer to the start of the season. He has said multiple times on social media and posts, and he's commenting on this, that he will play this year, but it'll be interesting to see, does he play? How much does he play? All that good stuff. But assuming that he does, I think he's going to be a really good college basketball player. 7'1", does like to kind of play on the perimeter a little bit, which is fine. Those are the skills that you need to develop for the NBA. But if he comes back to college, I think he can be a difference maker down low, shot blocker, rim runner, put back guy, second chance opportunities. I really, really like Aaron Bradshaw. Oh, by the way, you know who else I like? His former high school teammate, DJ Wagner, who is also going to Kentucky. And it's interesting because I do feel like with DJ Wagner, it feels like there's been like a little bit of reverse hype about him. Like he was deemed the #1 player in the class of 2023 high school wise, pretty much forever. Like #1 player forever, son of DeJuan Wagner, all that good stuff. Had a good but not great senior year. And then it was one of those things where I think people were kind of tired about talking about him. And he just fell a little bit in the rankings, fell in these mock drafts. And I'm like, he's still a very, very, very good player. 6'3" guard. And he's really the guy that Kentucky has needed over the last few years at this point guard position. Can create for himself, can create for others, can beat people off the dribble, can get to the rim, can attack. I think he's like a 16, 17 point per game scorer this year for Kentucky. And I think he's a guy, probably the best point guard that they've had since De'Aaron Fox several years ago. Really like his game. Think there's a little too much reverse negativity about him. Again, I think people got tired of talking about him. He's going to be really good. DJ Wagner, another name you need to know. Let's keep it going with a couple guys that actually are coming back for another year of college basketball. First one, Tyrese Proctor at Duke. Averaged just under 10 points per game as a freshman last year. Keep in mind, this was a kid that came a year early, reclassified, decided to come to Duke a year ahead of schedule, and was really good for them. And I'll take it a step further. I hate to say it. I hate to be crass. I hate to be rude. But as other guys got injured and the depth kind of started to thin, and this guy just got more playing time, he actually played his best late in the season when Duke was actually playing his best as well. One of the few guys that played well against Tennessee in the NCAA tournament, 16 points per game in the loss to Tennessee, 18 in an ACC tournament win over Miami, which made the Final Four. Can play on the ball, can play off the ball, shoot, dribble, pass, all that good stuff. Averaged about 3.5 assists per game as a secondary ball handler and a true freshman in college basketball. I think this kid has a chance to be really, really, really good next year. First team All-American type kid, and a guy that I think is going to have a ton of success next year. Another college player that you need to know, Donovan Clingan, University of Connecticut. And I think if you've watched this, if you're watching this video on YouTube, you've probably watched Donovan Clingan in college basketball, 7'2" center this year. And really, because of Adama Sanogo's presence, NCAA tournament most outstanding player, you saw flashes from Donovan Clingan, but you didn't see the full effect. And so just to make sure that I got this right, I went back and looked up Donovan Clingan's per 40-minute stats this past year at UConn. How about this? He averaged 21.1 points per game, 17.1 rebounds per game, 5.5 blocks per game this past season at UConn over a 40-minute stretch. So his per 40 minutes, 21 points per game, 17 rebounds, 5.5 blocks. He did not play that much strictly because there was so much talent in the front court. But even despite it, was probably a kid that could have probably gone to the NBA draft after this year had he decided to and been a first-round pick, instead decides to come back. Well, next year, I think he is going to be one of the best players in college basketball, one of the most dominant players in college basketball. Again, his per 40 minutes, he only played 13 minutes per game this year because of Adama Sanogo. His per 40 minutes, 21 points, 17 rebounds, 5.5 blocks, even if he's playing 25 to 30 minutes. That is an All-American type season. And frankly, probably a top 10 pick type season as well. Beyond Donovan Clingan, I'll say this. I think there's another player at UConn that you need to know. Stephon Castle, 6'6" freshman guard from the Georgia area. Interesting story. Another Dan Hurley development success story. Another Dan Hurley talent identification story. This kid was like a top 35, 30 prospect when he committed to UConn. He ends up in the top 10 and is a McDonald's All-American. Big guard, 6'6". I think the intention was to put the ball in his hands when he committed. Then Tristan Newton has that extra year of eligibility. He comes back. So I think Castle's going to be playing on the ball, but he's also going to be playing off the ball. Doesn't matter. This kid is a lottery type talent. Now, the one thing about UConn we have seen, guys take their time, they develop. Clingan comes back for an extra year. Andre Jackson does 3 years. Jordan Hawkins does 2 years. Don't know if he's going to be in position to leave a year from now, but this is a really talented player. A couple other names you need to know. Another guy we talked about a lot this spring, Mackenzie Mbako, was committed to Duke, decides to decommit when they had a slew of players come back. He ends up going through the process down to Kansas and Indiana, chooses Mike Effin Woodson in Indiana. But he's about 6'9", another guy that can kind of do it all, handle, pass, dribble, shoot. I think he's got to tighten some things up in terms of his game. But hey, nobody's perfect at 18 years old. He is going to be really good next year at Indiana. Maybe the best NBA draft prospect in the Big Ten next year. A couple other guys, Cody Williams, 6'8" forward, is going to be a freshman at Colorado next year. His brother is Jalen Williams, the guard from Santa Clara who played for the Oklahoma City Thunder this past year. Just like his brother, a late developing prospect that has come on strong, really, really, really talented. And then finally, I'm trying to think if I missed anybody, by the way. I'm just trying to look really quick here. There's a few international players you need to know, but let me wrap on 2 other guys that are noteworthy in their own regard. One, Isaiah Collier, number 1 point guard in America. Really interesting story. Gets hurt last offseason, misses most of the summer. Didn't really have like a huge, like blue blood type recruitment. I think part of it was Kentucky knew they were locked in on DJ Wagner. Duke kind of had their guards committed early. So this guy, even as he emerges, that Duke Kentucky type offer isn't out there. I don't think UNC was interested for some reason or another. Ends up choosing USC over UCLA and Cincinnati. And ends up being a top 5 prospect in the high school class and think he's going to be really good. 6'4", point guard, really talented, all that good stuff. And then lastly, let me just say the name. I'm going to say it. Bronny James. Now listen, he's an interesting prospect because he's one, I give him credit. He knows his role. He knows who he is. He knows his strengths. He knows his weaknesses. I've seen him projected as a top 10 pick. I don't see that at all, really. But what I do think is that part of it is LeBron James, his dad, has said publicly that he wants to play with Bronny. Do you draft him hoping to get LeBron? But Bronny James is another name you need to know from the 2024 NBA draft.